Bajaj Auto, India's largest exporter of two-wheelers, has had a strong quarter-one performance. The maker of the iconic Pulsar brand of motorcycles, KTM, Triumph, Husqvarna, and a market leader in the three-wheeler segment with a 78% market share, is ramping up its clean energy portfolio. With the aim to drive growth over the next 10 years and making the company future-ready, the company is preparing a diverse portfolio of electric, CNG, flex fuel and other alternate fuel vehicles. Bajaj Auto is among the top three in the electric two-wheeler market and has a plan to increase production and sale of the Chetak scooter. The company hopes the Freedom 125 CNG bike could help increase market share in the 100 to 125cc segment. Also on the cards is an e-rickshaw, ethanol and hydrogen bikes and a twin-cylinder motorcycle in future as well. Joining us now to talk about the company's growth strategy is the company's Managing Director, Rajeev Bajaj. Mr. Bajaj, thank you very much for joining us. The company has been an outperformer in calendar year 2024, surging 50% compared to the 12% rise in the BSE Sensex. If we speak about the stock, what do you think is working in favor of the company right now? Do you feel, with all the disruptions behind, you've managed to put together a strong clean energy vehicle pipeline for the future, and this is something that you'll focus on for sustained growth?
Well, hi Parikshit, good afternoon. I think it's for all the reasons that I just heard you mention, but in one word, I would like to think it is because of this company's ability to adapt. You know, Charles Darwin said it's not the strongest or the most intelligent of the species that survives, but the ones that are most adaptive to change. And if you look at what's happened to Bajaj Auto in the last 25 years, it has demonstrated an outstanding ability to adapt. First, to adapt from being a domestic player to a global player. As you're aware, we now export about half of what we make to exactly 100 countries. Then came the transition. We adapted from being a scooter-centric company to becoming a motorcycle-centric company. And I would like to believe that it is that strategy which led us last year to become the world's most valuable two- and three-wheeler company in terms of market cap. And that has been only growing, as you just mentioned. And finally, to adapt from being a ICE company to also being a clean energy company. And in that context, I must share with you that we stand on the cusp of a very great milestone for us, which is that as we head into the festive season in the months of September, October, November, we are very likely to cross a monthly sales production and sales rate of over 100,000 clean energy two-wheelers and three-wheelers. So it's a great time for us.
Right. Give us also a sense, how do you expect your clean energy portfolio to contribute to total revenues in FY25 and by FY30?
Okay. So FY30, it's a little too distant in the murky future. But I'll tell you where we stand right now. So in September, for example, we see a sales requirement of a shade under 500,000 vehicles, of which, as I said, almost 100,000, if not a little more, would be clean energy vehicles. So, in volume terms, that's a little more than 20%. And because CNG vehicles and EVs are significantly more expensive than their corresponding ICE vehicles. So I don't know the number, but I would hazard that definitely over 25% of our current revenue is already coming from or about to come from clean energy vehicles, which is quite remarkable. I can put a little more color on that for you. We are looking at, for example, 20,000 of the newly launched Freedom, the world's first CNG motorcycle. We are going to do our best to get closer to 30,000 Chetaks. Easier said than done, because it was only last month that we crossed 20,000 for the first time. We are a very, very strong player in the CNG three-wheeler market with over 80% share of that. So over 40,000 CNG three-wheelers should head out next month. And we are very pleased with our success of the electric three-wheeler, of which we will try to make closer to 6,000 or a little more next month. So if you add that all up, it tells you that the split between two-wheelers and three-wheelers is about 50-50. The split between EV and CNG is also close to 50-50. And altogether, it's a cumulative 100,000 vehicles a month, about 25% of our revenue.
Now, you had over 13,000 bookings for the Freedom 125 CNG motorcycle when we last checked about 2 weeks ago. What is the current production ramp-up plan for the Freedom motorcycle?
Last month we did about 2,000 vehicles. It was the first month of introduction. This month our goal was to do 10,000 vehicles, but due to some part shortages, I think we will be somewhere between 8 and 9,000 vehicles, the last I heard last week, which I still think is very good for what is practically the first full month of production after launch. As I just finished saying, we are going to hope to push that to 20,000 vehicles next month. And Rakesh just gave us clearance to expand to 40,000 vehicles. So I think by January, if not before, we should be headed to about 40,000 per month of this wonderful motorcycle.
Now, considering that the numbers are encouraging and you are receiving strong response to the Freedom 125 CNG motorcycle, could we expect you to launch more CNG models in the near future, maybe prepone the launch plans?
Well, yes and no. Yes, because we do have another CNG motorcycle due shortly. I can say within this financial year, sometime in the second half of this financial year. But at the same time, I would hasten to add, Parikshit, if you look at the stellar successes of brands in the last 30 years, the brands that really stand out are those like Hero Splendor, Honda's Activa and Shine, our own Pulsar and our three-wheeler, Royal Enfield's Classic. So you would see that, they really demonstrate the wisdom of less being more. So it's not about really spraying and praying after putting a lot of SKUs out there. It is about choosing your battles very carefully, being very focused in your understanding of what the customer wants, which the competition cannot easily provide at the moment, and then making that introduction as effectively as possible. So while we will have another bike coming in shortly, but I think the Freedom 125 that is currently in the marketplace, from all that I've heard in the last 6 weeks since launch, that really has the legs to go all the way to 40,000 a month, if not beyond.
You had also hinted to us earlier that CNG is not the only portfolio that you're working on. There is an ethanol or a flex fuel motorcycle, a hydrogen motorcycle that you're also working on for future. Any timeline that you could give us as to what we can expect next, considering that clean energy is a focus area for Bajaj Auto?
Well, clearly between the two, ethanol will come first. We have always been very encouraged by Mr. Gadkari's emphasis on this fuel. And next month, along with other players from the industry, we will be showcasing our ethanol motorcycle and three-wheeler in Delhi. And I think within this financial year, we will be ready to launch these products. Hydrogen is obviously, as you can imagine, still in the works as far as R&D is concerned. So Joe's working on that, but one day soon, why not?
Now, as the space is growing fast and this is the festive season, how soon can we expect more electric scooter launches, either in the affordable or in the premium segment from Bajaj Auto?
We will have launches at both ends of the market that you mentioned, because there are consumers at both ends of the market. And at the same time, we also, we need to keep the higher end going from a brand point of view. But also for the scale, we need the products at the more competitive price point also. So having just launched a third product, there are more due later this year, within this financial year. We talked about it the last time we met a couple of months back. And I think post the festive season and before March, certainly there will be more Chetaks in the marketplace. And I could reiterate what I shared with you the last time, that not only will there be more Chetaks in the market off the current platform, hopefully very sharply positioned, but there will also be a new Chetak platform that I had mentioned to you when we met the last time, and that should be out early in the next financial year.
Now, speaking about electric motorcycles, Royal Enfield has already declared, it's in public domain, that they will be launching an electric motorcycle, Ultraviolet Revolt. have electric motorcycles in the market. Ola plans to launch them as well. Now, considering that the market is going to come up with these electric motorcycles, what is your thought on bringing one to market?
Well, I'm going to take two steps back and tell you the big picture as we see it, Parikshit. 30 years ago, 70% of the Indian two-wheeler market was scooters. And that is when this company started to place its bets on motorcycles. It was a very counterintuitive choice. A lot of people scoffed at it. A lot of people laughed it off. A lot of people were critical of it and are still critical of it. But it has stood us well. It has paid off. And what is it that moved the needle from the market being 70% scooters to becoming 65% motorcycles? One simple metric, which was that the 100cc motorcycle was 50% more fuel efficient than the 100cc scooter on account of its transmission. Which is much more efficient than that of the automatic transmission of the scooter. But now when you come to the EV world, and if you have the same drivetrain, which means primarily the same battery and the same motor, in a scooter form factor and a motorcycle form factor, you will actually get the same performance. You will get the same speed, you will get the same range, you will have the same charging time requirement, etc. So that very big advantage that the motorcycle had over the scooter in an ICE format is now gone. And the other strengths of the scooter, in terms of all the comfort and convenience that it offers as a form factor over the motorcycle, will come to the fore. So, if I sit here and tell you today that I am imagining that India will go back to becoming a 70% scooter market, you would be inclined to laugh me off, as perhaps your predecessor did 30 years ago. And hopefully, I would be right a second time around. So the short story is that as a company, we strongly believe that, while scooters and motorcycles will both be popular, scooters in the electric format hold far greater potential than do motorcycles. That's why, there's nothing ultra about the sale of ultraviolet. It's 5 or 10 motorcycles a month, I believe. And there is no revolution that revolt has caused. As for Ola, as always, we will see what happens when they are in the marketplace. So we are staying very focused on EV scooters now. That's the short answer.
Now, when do you expect to become profitable with your electric vehicle segment, Mr. Bajaj? Because you're one of those who have been very candid at EVs losing money. So when it comes to the path for profitability, how far are you?
Not only is our revenue growing to a very significant level, but if I take our, not just our clean energy portfolio, which includes both CNG and electric, that's of course very profitable, as you can imagine. But if I were to take only our electric portfolio, and in that I include the little vehicles we make for Yulu, our associate company out of Bangalore, the leader in micro mobility in this country. I include all the Chetaks that we make and the electric three-wheeler that I mentioned. I was actually surprised to understand from our CFO Dinesh last month that portfolio is already profitable. Of course, with help from EMPS and FAME and PLI and whatever. I'm not even sure we have PLI factored in as yet, because we just received certification last week for all of our applications. But that portfolio is already positive. Now, obviously, every SKU there is not positive, but that's okay. That happens in an ICE portfolio also. We have SKUs out there in the domestic market, in some of our African markets, which are still not profitable. So that's fine. But as a total portfolio, not just our clean energy portfolio, but our EV portfolio is already positive.
Speaking about the three-wheeler segment specifically, you've got a strong 78% market share as per the Q1 earnings call. From a 26% market share in the E3-wheeler segment, how do you expect to grow the market share in the E3-wheeler segment? Are there more launches expected?
We expect to grow it the way we've been growing it in the last 15 months since launch. As you're aware, a couple of our major competitors have been in the market for about 3 or 4 years. We ourselves entered the E3-wheeler market with the auto and the cargo variants only last May. We made a small beginning starting from Agra. And I was very pleasantly surprised again to learn around 20th of August when we met for a review that the Vahan data for August shows that Bajaj has actually become the market leader in the E3-wheeler segment, by which, again, I must clarify, I mean e-auto and e-cargo. I'm not including the e-rickshaw because we don't participate in that market, at least at the moment. So our market share, if I remember right, was about 36%, is what our president of the business, Samar, informed us. And, I was, as I said, delighted and surprised at the same time because I didn't know that we had done that well. And then I understood also that in markets that we have launched for over 3 months, our share is very often 50% or above. So our goal is very clear, Parikshit, that as you said, with the ICE three-wheeler business, our market share is about 80%. And we love that. And that is where we would like to be headed with the electric three-wheeler. Whether we'll make it there, we don't know. But our goal is 80% market share.
You have collaborated with global companies such as Triumph, KTM, Kawasaki in the past. Now, would you be looking at certain partnerships, more such partnerships, either in the three-wheeler segment or in motorcycles or scooters?
You always manage to get me to say things that I should not be saying. But I will say this, that again, it's a case of less is more. So one has to think through these things very carefully and be very selective. But definitely, we are discussing amongst ourselves the possibility of something in what can be broadly called urban mobility, because as we go forward and the world needs certainly in its major cities, if not elsewhere, more sustainable mobility. So I think we may have an opportunity for a very meaningful global partnership in that area. But it's early days. I shouldn't even be talking about it. But since it's you, I'm going to mention this, but don't make me say any more.
Considering the demand for GST reduction on CNG two-wheelers, this is something that you have been speaking about. There is a big debate on taxation on hybrid cars and reduction on GST on CNG two-wheelers. What is your hope right now?
Well, I would like to say I am hopeful because SIAM as a industry association has submitted a request to the government, to the MHI, etc., for a reconsideration of GST on CNG two-wheelers. And let me elaborate for a minute on this, Parikshit. CNG three-wheelers already exist, and I don't think we need any reconsideration there because with a three-wheeler, it's driven for between 100 and 200 kilometers a day. So the OPEX is so favorable that the payback period is really attractive. With cars, CNG cars are also very popular, I'm sure you know. I'm told in Pune, for example, 30% of cars registered every month are CNG. And with cars, what happens is the capex that is imposed, additional capex imposed on the customer is about 5-7%. Whereas with the two-wheeler, it's the worst of both worlds. The capex increment is about 25%. The CNG cylinder and the entire system as a percentage of the price of a typical 100-125cc motorcycle. And the OPEX also, he's at a disadvantage relative to the three-wheeler because he's not riding typically 100-200 kilometers a day. So I think the bigger picture that we have tried to present to government, and I have personally had the occasion to meet many people, senior people in various ministries, including last month, even in the PMO, etc. And what I have said to them is that, look, this is the most rewarding two-wheeler market in the world, and we have the opportunity to transition this market to clean energy. Now, look what's happened with electric two-wheelers. The penetration is still 5% after everything that the government has done, after all the investments that OEMs have made. It's only 5%, you know. So where is it going to be 25%, let alone 50%? I don't think in the near future. But I feel very confident when I say that if we were to, have this kind of a twin engine approach of EV and CNG, for example, then could three-wheelers for sure, and the vast majority of two-wheelers make the transition from petrol and diesel to CNG and EV before 2030? I think the answer is yes. So, and I was very happy with the response I got from everyone in government so far, which was basically that we are agnostic to technology. We are not single-mindedly focused on just EV. CNG is a great idea as well. And so they said they will consider it favorably. On your last point of hybrids, I want to say to you what I heard. Honda is a company, is my favorite two-wheeler company. I learned a lot from Honda people, and I once heard a Honda CEO say, if I were to paraphrase him, it would be this: hybrids will exist because society will want hybrids to exist. So yes, government regulations and policy framework is important. What manufacturers and OEMs want is important, but what is most important is what society wants and consumers want. And I do not understand at all why in this country we are only promoting e-cars or electric cars and not strong hybrids suitably defined, because that is where the world is headed. That is what makes sense. We are never going to have a pan-India charging infrastructure. And already I believe, although that's not my business, I believe already strong hybrids in India have overtaken EVs. So I think, we should get real about this and do what's right for society in general.
Mr. Bajaj, how soon do you expect the company to hit the next 100,000 mark in terms of clean energy portfolio?
Well, I think in the very near future, I would like to believe, because if you look at the individual products, freedom from 40,000 to 80,000 in a two-wheeler addressable industry size of 700,000 vehicles, I think very much possible. Chetak, especially with the new platform going from 30,000 to 50,000 a month, I think not unrealistic. The three-wheeler will, I'm sure, continue to go from strength to strength, especially because I believe the electric three-wheeler should catalyze and spur a lot of replacement demand in major cities. And finally, as I shared with you the last time we met, we hope to soon participate in the next financial year in the e-rickshaw segment, which is also about 40,000-50,000 vehicles a month. So if you add all of that together, for 100,000 to become 200,000, it should happen. I would say in the next couple of years, not more.
All right. And finally, Mr. Bajaj, at the 17th AGM, you had said that Bajaj Auto needs a new MD. You've often spoken about a reset because of the push towards clean technology. You also mentioned in a lighter vein that you're not going anywhere immediately. Now, you already have separate MDs for Chetak Electric Mobility and Bajaj Credit. How does one read this statement in terms of your succession plan at Bajaj Auto? And do you have a candidate in mind?
What happened at the AGM was I was so proud of my colleagues, Joe at CTL and Kevin Disa at BACL, at Bajaj Auto Credit Limited. And I was in the presence of the shareholders who were attending. I was congratulating them on becoming MDs of the respective companies that you also just mentioned. And in that context, in a lighter vein, I said, maybe Bajaj Auto also needs a new MD because I've been here too long. Now, as is usually the norm, somebody takes that out of context and puts it out to imply something else. So I must clarify that I never implied, and I said that later on, as you mentioned, that I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. But I'll say this, Parikshit. See, it was 20 years ago that I became, about 20 years ago, that I became managing director of Bajaj Auto. So I was about 35 then. Look at my good friend Siddharth at Royal Enfield. What a fantastic success he's had. And he's about 10 years younger than I. And look at the amazing run that TVS has had. And Sudarshan is just 35, I think, and he was MD at 33. So, when I look at this, it certainly makes me feel that, while we are wiser, let's say, when we are older, but I wonder if we have the same drive we did when we were 35 and 45. So, the saying, if only youth knew and if only age could, so that sometimes does play up in my mind. But no, I have no retirement plans and no succession plans at the present moment.
All right. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Mr. Rajeev Bajaj, giving us your view on the company reaching the historic milestone of 100,000 clean energy vehicles and how you are going to power the growth of Bajaj Auto as a clean energy technology company in the next few years as part of your diversification and premiumization strategy as well. Thank you once again for being with us.
Thank you, Parikshit. Always a pleasure. Thank you.